Today is a celebration of Africa, and already we've had very eloquent speakers already. I just want to share a little bit of my personal experience. Like quite a few of you here in the audience are also born in Africa. So, am I clicking the wrong way? Yes. So I will just speak a little bit from my personal experience in Africa, based in Zambia. I'm born in Zambia, and that was colonial Africa, northern Rhodesia. And that was the atmosphere that I was born into. My mother had gone out as a nursing sister. Anybody from Lancashire here? She did her training at Liverpool Royal Infirmary. So she went out as a nursing sister to the mine hospitals in northern Rhodesia. And my father went out as a mining engineer. And like our sister was saying, Zambia is famous for copper. And on one side is Zambia, and the other side is Congo. And the copper is going underneath both nations. So on top, there's lots of borders, but actually underneath the miners are passing by each other like this, mining the same copper. But that was the atmosphere that I was born into. The official language was English. Like our brother was saying, Zambia also has 72 distinct indigenous languages, and like many of the countries in a similar situation. So English was the official language. The colonial atmosphere of servants, separation of the races and housing, that was the atmosphere I lived in. We had a house servant, we had a garden servant, we had the occasional cook, and everybody had a pecking order as well. So that was the atmosphere, very much a separation. Religious worship also was separate along racial lines. The towns were split into Asian community, African community, and white community. On Sunday, or according to respective religion, people worship the same God, but in different churches. And it was not allowed to mix. It was an apartheid. I was a young boy, but I was already aware of the emotions that was going and taking place. Separation of education, the schools, again, likewise, between indigenous and white schools. Separation of the job market, skilled workers reserved for the whites, and indigenous people only allowed to do unskilled work and laboring. And then the police force, led by the white community, the African community, only allowed to reach up to the position of sergeant. However, the irony is that some of the top regiments in World War II came from East Africa, and they fought so bravely for king and country, as so called in those days, so bravely, and yet, and shed their blood, and yet at the end of the war, everything reverted back to this colonial atmosphere. We've already touched upon UPF development and how our founder envisaged a two-tier chamber eventually in the United Nations that there must be a spiritual chamber, a religious chamber in the United Nations to give the spiritual direction to the external world, to the external chambers. So now we see a United Nations which has zero power, zero authority, just shies away from getting involved. When a conflict breaks out, and again, sadly again in Sudan, we're witnessing that now, instead of the United Nations being there, bringing about a peace, separating the warring factions, it's a hands-off policy. And so we continue. But the root cause of the United Nations, it doesn't have spiritual direction. So Reverend Moon's vision is that the United Nations must grow into a spiritual chamber where the religions of the world give the spiritual direction. So that is one of the key goals. And underlying this presentation, I want us to keep drawing back to one of the founding principles of UPF, which is to build and create a society of one family under God. One family under God. We are all here, all different colors, as our sisters said already. So many races here, so many birthplaces here in this room. But we have one common element, and that is God. God. Huh? Looking over this room. How about that? Is it good? Yeah. If I was in church, I would get an amen. Can I have an amen? Amen. Okay, good. I have to be careful I don't go into sermon mode. You can. I can? Yes. Okay. Thank you. And then, as I've just said, to bring about and solve this division of the divided family and to bring about one family under God. So UPF has had a number of international conferences and summits since 2018 in Africa. With our founders believe that Africa can take the lead and demonstrate to other nations, to other continents, that peace is possible. It is possible to bring about one family under God. So in all of these conferences, each of the nations which hosted demonstrated that theme of one family under God. People came from all over the world to attend these summits, all from Europe, America, Asia, South America, and they were flabbergasted with how the atmosphere of Africa, it is our belief that Africa can demonstrate to the world a living spirituality, and encourage other nations to work towards that. We have the system in Africa of the extended family. Is that correct? Yes. We don't have nursing homes. No. We don't have care homes. No. We have what we call the extended family system. The whole family comes together as a team, as a teamwork. The grandparents, the great-grandparents, the parents, the children, and everybody takes care of, in my language in Zambia, Chinyanja, taking care of the madalas. Yeah, madalas. That's the Whitehead Club. You know, when you start becoming in your 70s and so on, you're called a Madala. But we don't have care homes and all that breaking down. No, it is really a family working together. So in all these summits, that's what was demonstrated. And visitors who came to these summits in Africa saw that and experienced that. There is the president, Macky Sall, welcoming our founder, Reverend Moon. UPF is an NGO. It is not a governmental body. But out of courtesy, this is the African heart, out of courtesy, he welcomed Mrs. Moon, our founder, at the national level and said, you're doing a lot of work in Africa, in Senegal. I will respect that. I will give you the greeting from the presidential office. Yeah. Do we have that in Europe? No. Do we have that in America? No. Do we have that in any other continent? No. Because in Africa, we still have that respect. Is it true or not? Yes. We have that respect for our elders, And so we had a wonderful summit there in Senegal, in South Africa, in Sao Tome, and each time the president is there, and in Niger, all on a continental level. And it was already mentioned, the UPF is working with the African Union, OAU now, to have a continental level summit. So that is at one level. Then UPF also were working on a grassroots level. And a lot of it is education for the youth. And here's an example here of a program in Lesotho. When I visited Lesotho, is giving character education to the youth. So we continue with these programs. We have a lot of interfaith work. Here's a picture here of interfaith work in South Africa, in Johannesburg, which, even though it has been independence since with the release of Nelson Mandela in 1990, still has a lot of issues, UPF is working at the forefront to bring about interfaith dialogue. Another example here in Zambia. Well, that's me. Running with President Lungu a few years ago. And again, I put that slide up because it shows how open governments are in Africa. If they see goodness taking place, they see UPF, doing good things, they want to be part of it. They want to get involved. So I did a morning run. I found it quite difficult, actually. President Lungu is quite fit. But anyway, managed to keep up. We do a lot of interfaith and interracial blessings. One of the cores of the UPF, as already mentioned, is strengthening the family. As I said, one family under God. So strengthening the family. And we have that program of the blessing, where husband and wife can come forward in a ceremony and renew their blessing vows. So 2 weeks ago, there was a major ceremony in Korea. Perhaps some of you were there, or some of you saw that online. But through that ceremony, husbands and wives are asked to rededicate their marriage under God. So we have God, man, woman, child. Jehovah, man, woman, child. 4 positions. Is good or not? Is good? Is good. And here's an example, one photo, one local blessings, interracial, and so on. One thing that UPF strives to do is to keep up its friendships. And having met President Kaunda, founder of Zambia independence in 1982, when he was touring here in Britain, he had a meeting here in the other room downstairs, which is called the Africa Room. So that picture there is taken downstairs. Again, UPF prides on itself of international networking. And you've heard of the program of Ambassadors for Peace, right? Ambassadors for Peace is a program whereby one just doesn't come forward and receive an award, but you receive the membership so that you can call anybody in the world. You can, if you're visiting another country, you can call that office and say, oh, can you give me the local UPF Ambassador for Peace in Dakar in Senegal? And you can receive a name and address. So when you visit Dakar in Senegal, you can be hosted and can meet that Ambassador for Peace. Is it a good program? Yes or no? Yes. It's a good program. Very good. Very good. So, and here's another slide of working with politicians. This is a big job in Africa. Very big job working with politicians. Oh, it's trying to overcome their selfishness. It's trying to overcome the selfishness of politicians, greed, thank you, brother, and to try and encourage them to live for the sake of others. Live for the sake of others. So we try to encourage the politicians, the political parties on a grassroots level to look beyond themselves, look to their community. So in those last few minutes, what I've expressed there is coming from a very sad colonial past, and that is the flag of Northern Rhodesia, created in 1911, to the freedom of Zambia, which received its independence October 24th, 1964. A big difference, big difference. Yeah. So lastly, here's all the relevant contacts for Robert and Margaret, and also myself, if you would like to send an email or whatever. I have also my own charity, Sunrise Africa Relief. I'm going to Zambia next week. I try to go out each year to do grassroots level work. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.